Imagine telling a computer, hey, just make me an app that does everything I want and expecting it to magically work. Sounds tempting, right? That's basically the idea behind vibe coding. And sure, it feels cool and futuristic until things start falling apart. So, what if I told you that vibe coding, this super relaxed way of programming that everyone on the internet is talking about, might actually be the worst idea for 25? Let's dive into why. So, so first, what is vibe coding? The term actually started as a sarcastic joke from Andrej Karpathy, one of OpenAI's founders. He joked about just giving vague instructions to an AI and letting it code everything for you. But the internet being the internet, people thought, wait, why not actually do that? And then suddenly it became a trend, people sitting back, talking casually to AI tools, expecting full apps or websites to come out of it like magic. No deep planning, no structure, just vibes and code. But the problem is, the original idea was sarcastic. It wasn't supposed to be taken seriously. I get why people like it, though. Imagine building a full program just by chatting with an AI like you're texting a friend. No stressing about syntax, no digging through documentation. Just describe what you want, and the AI writes everything for you. Sounds like a dream, right? Except the dream stops working when you realize that programming isn't just about typing code. That's one of the biggest misconceptions. People think the hard part of programming is writing code. It's not. The real challenge is understanding what problem you're solving in the first place and breaking it into smaller, logical steps. You can't just vibe your way through that. Think about it like this. Anyone can follow a recipe if all the steps are written down. But creating the recipe from scratch, figuring out the ingredients, measurements, techniques, that's where actual skill comes in. Coding is the same. The typing part is just the final step. The real work is in thinking deeply, analyzing, and planning. Vibe coding skips that step and hopes the AI will connect all the dots for you. Spoiler alert, it won't. The tech industry doesn't help either. We love labels like Java programmer, React developer, or Python expert. But experienced developers know the truth. Good programmers aren't defined by one language. Once you understand the core principles of programming, you can learn a new language pretty quickly. What really matters is knowing how to think logically, solve problems, and write code that's clear and reliable. Computers don't understand vibes. They need exact step-by-step instructions with zero confusion. Programming languages were invented to help us think clearly. They're like super strict versions of human language. Like when we talk to people, we can be vague and they still get the point, but a computer won't do anything unless we tell it exactly what, how, when, and why. A good programming language doesn't just tell the computer what to do. It helps you organize your thoughts, communicate with other programmers, and make sense of complex ideas. That's why learning to code isn't just learning syntax, it's learning how to think. Real programming means managing complexity. You use tools like modularity, separation of concerns, and abstraction, not because your teacher said so, but because without them, everything collapses. Imagine building a giant Lego city with no instructions and no plan. You'd end up with a mess. Good design and code works the same way. You structure things properly, so they're easy to understand, easy to change, and don't break when you add new features. But vibe coding ignores that structure. It's like chucking Legos at a wall and calling it architecture. Now, here's where AI makes things both exciting and dangerous. AI tools like coding assistants are trained on tons of code, some brilliant, some terrible, and they don't always know the difference. That means they can generate working code, sure, but not always good code. And most of the time, they don't understand the deeper meaning behind what you want. They just predict patterns. So if you're not careful, you end up with something that works today, but is impossible to fix tomorrow. Experienced developers know one simple truth. Your first idea is usually wrong. That's why good design is flexible. You build systems that are easy to change because you know change is coming. You test things constantly to make sure each step is working as expected. You don't just throw everything together and pray. Good code isn't measured by how fancy it looks, it's measured by how easy it is to modify without breaking everything else. That's the real superpower, and vibe coding doesn't usually care about that. Let's talk about the real dangers of vibe coding. First, it makes you lazy about being clear. You say something vague like, make a login system, and expect AI to know all the details: security, error handling, database structure. But how can it if you don't? Second, how do you know the code actually does what you wanted? If you didn't specify clearly and you didn't test properly, you're just guessing. Third, AI doesn't understand your long-term goals. It doesn't know how you want to evolve your app in the future. So it can write code that works now but is painful to update later. That's why testing becomes more important than ever with AI. You need a way to verify everything step by step, especially when you're not writing all the code yourself. At the end of the day, programming isn't about having the coolest tools or the trendiest buzzwords. It's about understanding problems, designing solid solutions, and making sure they actually work. Vibe coding might be fun for small experiments, for playing around, or just learning how to interact with AI. But for real projects, systems that people depend on, it's risky, messy, and honestly a little careless. So If you're someone who wants to build real things, things that work, that last, that you're proud of, learn the fundamentals. Learn how to think like a problem solver. Use AI as a tool, not a brain replacement. Let it help you, speed you up, give you ideas, but don't let it think for you. Because once you understand the logic, the planning, and the testing behind real software, you'll be way ahead of anyone just coding by vibes. And that's the big takeaway. Vibe coding isn't evil, it's just incomplete. Programming is still about careful thinking, clear instructions, and checking your work. So keep experimenting, keep building, but don't skip the hard parts. They're what make you a real programmer.